So it's all God's, and he gives it to us. And we ought to be generous with it. It said he gives it to us so that we can have that generosity. In the 19th century, a tourist visited the famous Polish rabbi Hofetz Haim, and he was astonished to see that the rabbi's home was only a simple room filled with books, a table, and a bench. The tourist asked, "Rabbi, where's your furniture?" And the rabbi replied, "Where is yours?" And the tourist, confused, he said, "But I'm only a visitor here. I'm just passing through." And the rabbi smiled and he said, "So am I." Everything we have is God's, right? I think if we go through life with that open hand of thoughts about our money and things like that, we'll do well. So, real quick question. If God requested an audit of how his resources are being used in your home today, what would be the most pleasing line item? If he looked at your finances, where would he say, "Good job, you're doing well there"? Great. Tell us more about that a little bit. I think everybody knows what compassion children are, but nice. Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. Isn't it? They offer things that the kids need, and that requires money. But what they really need is Jesus, and that gives an opportunity to get that preached, right? So yeah, that's definitely a good one. What else? What other things are we? Yeah, go ahead, Kim. Yeah. Yeah, for sure. Yeah. Yep. Absolutely. Yeah, Crystal and I recently have been able to put away a little bit of money and give it away. And we've had like every month is like kind of like a special, like we blessed her niece a couple of months ago, who's a single mom, just like really a nice gift. And it's funny, it's like you do it and you never forget, the money leaves and you don't even like notice it, right? Like you think you're going to and you don't. But what doesn't leave is how good it made us feel to be able to do that, right? So it's pleasing I think it was pleasing to the Lord, but it was also pleasing to us. It was like, it felt good. Are there areas in your budget? I'm not going to have anybody speak out, but just think about it. Are there things in your budget, in your line items, that maybe God isn't so pleased with? You need to be a little bit better with. So thinking of this rabbi who said, like, I'm just passing by. I'm just kind of going through. How does the mindset of being a passerby, or how should the mindset of being a passerby change how you view your bank account balance? And you do take it? Is it entrance fee? Yeah, you cannot. Yeah, I mean, so should that change like how you think about it? I mean, the money is only useful here and only for the living, right? What else? How else does a mindset of being a passerby change how you view your bank account? And you'd be fine, Jerry, because you're a really resourceful guy. I have like no actual skills. I'd be really in trouble. So, that's the sovereignty. And then we're going to go to another kind of theme, debt and borrowing. What does the Bible say about debt and borrowing? So at the end of 2025, these are some staggering numbers before I get started. At the end of last year, total non-mortgage debt, so this is not including your mortgage, by Americans total was $5.6 trillion. Of that, $1.6 trillion was in student loan debt. $1.6 trillion in cars and $1.3 trillion in credit card debt. That breaks down to every adult in the U.S. carries on average $20,000 in debt. And it's even more glaring if you dig a little deeper. The average, like the median, the regular guy out there at 35 years old, this is like the picture of the average American at 35 years old, has $40,000 in student loans, $25,000 in car loans, and $17,000 in personal loans, and $7,000 in personal credit card debt. So total, it's over $70,000 in debt. Yeah, right. That's the reality. There's a lot of debt. So what does the Bible say about that? Well, I'm going to read another couple of verses here, 4 of them. First one is Romans 13:8. Let no debt remain outstanding except the continuing debt to love one another, for whoever loves others has fulfilled the law. Psalm 37:21 says, the wicked borrow and do not repay, but the righteous give generously. And Proverbs 17:8 in the NIV says, one who has no sense shakes hands in a pledge and puts up security for a neighbor. But I think it's even better in the CEV version where it says, it's stupid to guarantee someone else's loan. And Proverbs 22:7, the rich rule over the poor, and the borrower is slave to the lender. So in light of these verses, what do you think is the biblical view on debt? And what is the reasoning behind that? I mean, it's not just a financial thing. I think back over here, like Proverbs 22:7, the borrower is slave to the lender. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, like payday loans and stuff like that. Man, that is an evil industry. Yeah, go ahead. Mm-hmm. Yeah. There's a growing, you may or may not know about this, but there's like this thing called Klarna, Klarna, and there's a couple other companies that do that. But there's a lot of stuff now on the internet. It's called Buy Now, Pay Later, and it's usually through this company called Klarna, and they charge you some amount of interest, but they charge it in like monthly installments. So you could like get a plane ticket that's $300 and then pay it like $50 a month for 7 months or something like that, right? And it is big business, and a lot of people are getting in a lot of trouble with this because they're like, well, it's just a $50 payment, but then you put a 50 and another 30 and another 80, and they're upside down a lot. And so this is that kind of like idea. It literally says buy now, pay later on the bottom, and that's a lot of people are getting in trouble with that, Barb. So yeah, go ahead, Jerry. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, the car industry has been doing this a lot. So there was a a time when people would go buy a car with money, right? And now you go in and you buy a car and you put it on a loan, but your loan is 60 months, right? Okay, well that's 5 years. That was pretty standard for the long time. If you go to a car dealership today, most people don't have 60-month loans. Now they have 72, 84-month loans, 6, 7 years paying off a car because they can get the payment down, right? Yeah. Mm. Sure. Yeah. 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 Yeah, and it puts you it puts you at ill at ease, right? When you have these debts. I think I do want to be careful. I don't personally think debt is a sin, but I think it's a bad choice, right? Like God is saying, like He's protecting us from bad things, and He's saying, like, debt is tough. It gets you in a bad spot, and I want you to have a good life. Yeah, go ahead. Yeah. Well, you had to wait for that. That was too much. Now we want it immediately. Yeah, yeah, it is crazy. Um, yeah, the Bible generally treats debt as a burden to be avoided and emphasizes the importance of fulfilling your financial obligations. There's a old tale of a man who bought a horse on credit, and every time he rode the horse past the lender's house, the horse would stop and refuse to move until the lender came out and patted it. The man realized that even though he was in the saddle, the lender still had the reins. And I think that's an appropriate story. So, in what ways has financial debt, maybe it hasn't in your life, but just thinking about in others, in what ways could financial debt act as a master in your life, limiting your ability to say yes to God? Yeah, go ahead. Yeah. I don't know if you're like me, but every time I go to the mailbox, I have like 17 pieces of mail, and all of them are for credit card offers. Nobody spends more money advertising their product than credit card companies because there's huge money in it, like you said. Roll over 0% APR, 18 months, and then you don't pay it off. And guess what? On the 19th month, all of that 27% interest hits at a lump sum. Yeah, it's big business, for sure. What are some other ways, though, that debt might get in the way of your ability to say yes to God? Yeah. Yeah. The Claire's Boutique credit card. Yeah. Yeah. Mm. Yeah, it does bring a lot of shame and guilt. That's true. Yeah. I didn't know Fight Club was going to be making an appearance today. Yeah. 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 Yeah, it's a good point. I think debt and our spending habits unchecked can keep us in jobs that we don't want, keep us in places we don't want to be. We don't have that freedom. We feel like trapped sometimes. Absolutely, Kelly. Not anymore, Kelly. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
I don't mean to be conspiracy theorist, but not only do they not teach it anymore, they actually encourage you to get student loans. They're
Ah,
actually teaching you to do the opposite of basic mathematics.
And look at what's happening with colleges. Who are they paying? The sports guys. Who are they charging? The people who are there to learn something. So backwards.
yeah, and student loan debt is, people say, I'm $100,000 in student loan debt or whatever. It's not just, you're like, that. You had $100,000 in tuition? No. I'm an 18-year-old kid. They're going to give me the $3,000 or whatever, the $10,000 tuition and $25,000 this year to live on. And guess what? Student loans, not bankruptable. You can never get rid of a student loan, a U.S. student loan. So those are getting paid off, and then they keep you kind of in like the place that you have to be, because you got to pay it off. You have to take jobs you maybe don't want and do things you don't want. That's incredible. Can I get that deal for Fio coming up? That'd be. Yeah. Yep. Sure. Yeah. So, yes, it limits your freedom to do things, to say yes to God, and I think that's why God is warning against debt. You mentioned lending and interest, Joe. That's the third one I'll talk about. So here's 2 verses about lending and interest. The first is from Exodus 22:25. It says, "If you lend money to one of my people among you who is needy, do not treat it like a business deal. Charge no interest." And that's to the people around you, is talking like in the Israelites to one another. That's kind of like within the space. So if I'm lending somebody here in the church or something with no interest. But the New Testament ramps it up even more. Luke 6:35, Jesus says, "But love your enemies and do good to them and lend to them without expecting to get anything back. Then your reward will be great." So what do you think about these 2 verses on lending? How ought we to think if we are lending to someone? What kind of mindset should we have? It doesn't say don't lend here, right? But it says you have to have kind of a different mindset about the lending. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Certainly. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think you can give gifts. And here it seems to be, to me anyway, it seems to be like you can lend, but just don't do it like you're trying to make a deal, like you're trying to make money off of your friends and family. And if they can't pay it back, okay. And if they can, great. If they can't, I think that's generally the sense here. Yeah. Yes, certainly. Certainly. Yeah, and I think honestly we got to be like good, like smart about where we put our money too. We don't want somebody who's like we're giving money to somebody who's squandering it or using it that's in a way that's hurting themselves too. Yeah, Jerry. Yeah. Yeah, you certainly don't want to. Yeah. Exactly. When you help someone financially, do you mentally write it off as a gift, or does the expectation of repayment weigh on that relationship? What is God warning us against here, like this weight of the relationship? We just said in the previous one that the borrower is slave to the lender. What if you're the lender in that situation? Yeah. 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 I mean, I'm sure everybody has had stories or knows people that it's just been, so-and-so got into it and then they didn't pay him back, and there's resentment and there's anger. There's probably shame on the other end too. St. Lawrence, a deacon in the early church, was once ordered by the Roman prefect to turn over the treasures of the church. And so Lawrence asked for 3 days to go ahead and gather all the treasures of the church. And what he did is he went through the city and he gathered the poor, the crippled, the blind and the suffering to whom the church had lent aid and support. And on the third day, he presented them to the prefect, and he said, "Behold, these are the treasures of the church." Obviously, the prefect wasn't amused, but Lawrence showed that what the church was doing and what we ought to do is to take the things and invest in people and not possessions. Proverbs 19:17 says, "Whoever is kind to the poor lends to the Lord, and he will reward them for what they have done." So what does it mean to you that being kind to the poor is lending to the Lord? Yeah, say more about that, Calvin. Yeah. Yeah. Listen, I'm going to talk about it in a little bit, but I'll jump it up in the order here. God can do all of these things without us. God owns all of the money, and He can move money supernaturally. He doesn't need us involved in it, but He involves us in it because it gives us joy, first of all, but I think it also builds our character. It starts to get us into the rhythm of thinking of others besides ourselves first. Yeah, certainly. What else do you think it means to lending, that helping the poor is lending to the Lord? Yeah, Joe.
The Old Testament had a rather complex system of finance to try and keep people from going. They had the Jubilee year, and what else did they do? If a Jewish person was put into slavery, they could buy their way out. And so it was a real tight system, and that was from God.
And you mentioned the Jubilee. Can you, for those that don't know, can you explain what that was intended to be?
It was intended, I don't know how well they practiced it.
Probably they didn't. That's the general sense.
49 years, let's say you had sold your property to get money. This is always talking about the Jewish people, internal. At the 50-year mark, give it back to you.
Yeah. I don't think they did it for the Jewish people either. Right? Yeah, and I think I think the Lord's intent behind all of this is that nothing ought to be a life sentence like that. That there needs to be opportunity to get out. And I think sometimes we put ourselves in, it becomes a life sentence. I know people who are in their 70s that are still paying off student loans. They haven't paid off the student loan. Yes, that is. But only for your wife, Gary. So that's, that lending with interest, right? We have to think biblically around it. The fourth thing is the heart and motivation around money. Do you ever notice that there are certain things that God gives us in this world that are so powerful that when they are done and used in the right way, they can change lives? They're really powerful. And in the wrong ways, they can ruin it. Think of sexuality as an example. In a good marriage, it's an incredible blessing, pleasing to God and pleasing to us. And in every other circumstance where it's applied, it has terrible consequences. Heartbreak, embarrassment, trauma, shame, divorce. That's powerful. Money is powerful like that too, and we need to be careful about it. With the wrong intent, it can become a destructive master. When money becomes the primary why behind our choices, it has a way of hollowing out everything else. It can buy a house, but it can't buy a home. It can fund a wedding, but it can't build a marriage. Like sexuality, money is a powerful tool that was meant to be a servant, but it makes for a terrible God. So that's why we have some warnings about money in the Bible. Let me read a few here. 1 Timothy 6:10. For the love of money is a root of all kinds of evil. Some people eager for money have wandered from the faith and pierced themselves with many griefs. Sounds pretty dire. No, Matthew 6:24, Jesus says this, no one can serve two masters. Either you will hate the one and love the other, or you will be devoted to the one and despise the other. You cannot serve both God and money. And Hebrews 13:5, keep your lives free from the love of money and be content with what you have, because God has said, never will I leave you, never will I forsake you. So what are some ways that we can guard ourselves against having the wrong hearts and mindsets around money? Yeah.
There's one you could have added, I don't know if you
Sure.
in Matthew, Sermon on the Mount. First one, I read it, I thought, this is strange. Where your treasure is, there your heart will be also. I would have thought your heart is. So if your treasure is getting richer and richer and richer, that shows the state of your heart. And like the father said, oh, I got this great bumper crop and I'm going to build new barns and store all this stuff.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a good point. Thanks, Joe. That is a good one. Yeah. Sure. Yeah, for sure. And show the heart of God through that as well, Dave. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, and he gave it, God gives us money for a purpose, right? For his purposes. And so it's very powerful, like you said, and it needs to be used in the right way, right? It's a big responsibility. So knowing that it's a tool, it can do a lot of good. You were talking about the compassion children, or talking about giving into somebody like a young single mother's life, giving just a special gift, or what we do here at the church. Sometimes when people are down on their luck, the elder board gets to meet together, and we have. You guys are so great. We actually have an abundance of money inside of the fellowship fund, and so it's very easy to be able to help people in the church when they get in hard times, or to give them something. And that's because you all have taken the time to donate money, and so it's a really good tool. We can do really good things with it. But how can you tell when money has started to move from your tool belt to the throne of your heart? What is maybe something that we need to be wary of, that we don't fall into that? Yeah, all kinds of like ATVs and boats and and maybe not even that you want it in like the right order or the right time, but you're like obsessing about it, thinking about it. I'll be vulnerable. One thing I'm always trying to push back on is this idea of having enough for retirement so I can get done. And I think about it like a lot more than I should, instead of like, what's the point? Like, what is the point of that? Don't you want to, are you just going to like be that guy? I know I said it in my sermon a couple of weeks ago, like that collects shells the rest of your life or do you want to like take the years and the opportunities that God's given you and continue to build his kingdom here and to pour into people, right? So that's one that I struggle with, yeah. Absolutely, yeah. Yeah. But I'm checking like the stocks like daily, maybe 10 times a day. Like it's like I gotta yeah, I need to like back off a little bit. You're right. You do want to be also a good planner, right? And that way it gives you opportunity to do things for the Lord. Yeah. 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 Yeah, we just don't want to. Yeah, go ahead, Joy. Yeah. Yeah. I think it's like a lot of things. It's like we can tip one side or the other, and we have to walk that line in the middle where you do want to be good about your money, you want to be smart about it, you want to invest it well, you want it to grow, and you want to give as much as you can, right? And so it's really like, how do you walk that fine line between the two, for sure. The funny thing is that we spend sometimes so much of our time and energy thinking about money, and then it really is fleeting in the end. John D. Rockefeller was once one of the world's richest men. In today's dollars, he would have been worth at the peak around $600 billion. So to put that into perspective, the only person that's ever on this planet had more money than that is currently Elon Musk, who's around $800 billion, okay? So Rockefeller, for many, many years, was the richest man that ever lived, right? And after he died, someone asked his accountant, how much did John D. leave behind? And the person was expecting some dollar amount, like 400 billion or something like that. And the accountant replied, he left all of it. Right? I mean, they didn't take any of it with him. Which is why we should be generous with our wealth while we're here and it's still useful. Giving is the antidote to greed. And so the last topic I want to talk about is generosity and tithing. So the famous industrialist R.G. Letourneau made heavy machinery. He was famous for inventing and making, among other things, the bulldozer, the diesel generator, the scraper, the air crane, and those. He invented, those. If you see the big rubber tires, they used to use like metal tires before, or metal wheels, and so he was the first one to use like heavy duty rubber in his heavy equipment. And as his business grew, he felt so. Oh, I'm sorry. One more thing. He designed 70% of the heavy-duty vehicles used by the Allies in World War II. So he was a very important guy. And he started tithing 10% of his earnings when he was a young man, so when he started working. And as his business grew, he felt so blessed that he increased his giving to 20%, and then 30%. And eventually, towards the end of his life, he was actually giving away 90% of his income. He was like a reverse tither. And he reportedly said he couldn't outgive God, to your point, Kalajin. He said, the more I shovel out, the more God shovels back in, and God has a bigger shovel. And so this isn't meant, though, to be like a health and wealth message. I'm not saying like if you give more, you're going to get more, God's going to give you more money. That's not the point I'm making, but there is a biblical basis to some of this. So Malachi 3:10, bring the whole tithe into the storehouse. Test me in this and see if I will not throw open the floodgates of heaven and pour out so much blessing that there will not be room enough to store it. Proverbs 11:24, one person gives freely, yet gains even more. Another withholds unduly, but comes to poverty. Interesting. And 2 Corinthians 9:7, each of you should give what you have decided in your heart to give, not reluctantly or under compulsion, but for God loves a cheerful giver. The truth of the matter is that God does not need you to give. He can feed the poor. He can take care of ministries. He can clothe the orphans and the widows. He can support the needy, heal the sick, without a care for a single one of your dollars. But he allows us to give so that we can be a part of what he's doing. I actually think that giving is more for the giver sometimes than it is for the receiver. Yet across the general population of churchgoers, a significant portion does not contribute financially. Let me give you an example. This is from Barna Research Group. They do surveys in churches and things like that. Approximately 25 to 30% of churchgoers don't give any money to their church. 25 to 30% give zero. Roughly 50 to 60, this is like the biggest thing, of churchgoers give more than zero, but less than 10%. The vast majority of these donors give roughly 2% of their annual income to the church. And regular weekly giving has declined. In 2025, about 39% of churchgoers reported giving weekly, down from 49% a decade ago. Only 5 to 10% of all churchgoers follow the traditional 10% tithing behavior. So my question is, why do you think that is? What gets in the way? Why do you think people are reluctant to give? Tools. You can't afford as many tools, Jerry. You can if you put it on layaway, maybe. Oh, okay. They don't see that. Say more about that. Yeah? Yeah, do you sit there and you go, all right, if I give $200 and there's 4 of us, that's like $50 a person, and I could probably go to a concert for less than that, and Ryan is really not that good anyway, so, you like doing like the per seat price? No, but I see it. Like, is that really, is it going to where it needs to go? Do I see value in it? What else?
In Austria, we were there for years. You remember the Catholic Church, the Lutheran Church, you had to pay a certain amount
Mm-hmm.
to the government and then on to the church. And the people hated it. And it was only my understanding about 2%.
Oh.
They never got the picture. The evangelical type churches came along, and they didn't have that system. It was all voluntary. No mandatory giving, just voluntary. And the people gave way more than they did under the forced system. And human nature.
Yeah? Yeah? Hopefully with a cheerful heart. Greg?
Enough faith that you believe that, not to say that a lot of churches do this like a prosperity type teaching that you give more, you'll get back more. That's not biblical. But that he will provide. So you don't have enough faith that you should lean solely on Christ to provide. Instead, you have to fend for yourself.
Mhm.
And that could mean then not giving to those who actually.
Yeah, you get scared. If I do this, then I'm not going to be able to pay my bills, and I'm going to be, and you don't have the faith to do it, and so you don't, and then you don't have the faith, you don't have the money to pay your bills, maybe because God is not blessing you as much. I mean, like I said, I'm not trying to do health and wealth, give more and get more. But there is we read some verses where it does say, if you give, God is going to multiply for you. I don't know that you rely on that and you give for that reason. You certainly shouldn't, but there is some basis to it. Yeah. Jehovah Jireh? Mm-hmm. Yeah. Sure. Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah, Kim. Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Your character is being built too, right? Yeah. Go Jerry or Joe, and then you. Joe and then Joe. Yeah, I don't think it's not one of the verses I read, but it's that you ought to bring the tithe in as the first thing that you do, right? Uh, and so you sit around and you go, I make $100,000, or I bring in $100,000, but I don't have $100,000 to spend. I have 90,000, which is still an awful lot because all of it is God entrusted to me, right? It's all God's. And so instead, I think sometimes to think, oh, I got to give 10% to God. A different mindset could be, I get to keep 90% for me. Did I see another hand? Yeah. Oh, and then you, Mom. Yeah, it's true, actually. Yeah, it's an interest. You're right. We see it in like studies, and I've seen it. There's like a lot of people on TikTok. They have like a lot of people do these videos where they'll go and they'll ask like rich people for like something, and they don't get anything, and then they'll go to like poor neighborhoods, and the poor people are like, yeah, let me go buy you like lunch or something like that. Yeah, it is interesting. Yeah, 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 yeah. Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. We don't even have that anymore, Mike. Now it's just numbers in the bank account. Like, so. Yeah, Joe, and then oh, did you have some, Joe?
Yeah, it's time for a joke.
All right.
These two guys are out sailing around the world, sailboat, and they get shipwrecked. They're on a desert island, they're off track. There's a tremendous storm that came up, and they're hundreds of miles off track. So the one guy's running around in a panic, and will never be found, we're dead, we're skunked. And the other guy's just leaning against a palm tree, taking a nap. And the other guy says, how can you be so calm? We're dead, we're skunked. And he said, no problem, my pastor will find me. And the other guy said, what do you mean your pastor will find you? We're in the middle of nowhere, hundreds of miles off course. And he said, look, I make $1 million a year, I get 10% of it. My pastor.
There's motivation there. There's motivation. Yeah, I think the elder board would send out a search party for somebody. Any other thoughts before we close out? Just on money and giving, and so there. Yeah.
I have a thought that, I don't feel like it's coincidental. He had brought up the conversation of that which is Caesar's,
Mm-hmm.
talking about that, and I think that's something about finances.
No, I'm done. So just give me your last one.
That we remember, which is he didn't seem to understand the side of explaining to
Mm.
It says, give God that which is
Right.
we are made in his image, so never forget that which is Caesar's is just a coin, it's finances, it has nothing to do with it. Give yourself because you are
Yeah.
made in the image of God. So always give yourself to God.
Yeah. It's a good reminder, Greg. Thank you. All right. Joe, would you close us in prayer? Would you go into that for us? Thanks.
Father, we thank you for Anthony's work on researching this rather sensitive subject for many people. And help us all, every single person in this room, to be good stewards of what you have given us. Chronicles, it all comes from your hand. And help us to be cheerful givers. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen. Thanks, guys. Have a good Sunday. Yeah.